it's been a lot of people that want to get into security because of the money, and then they go out and get all the certifications that are well known and well established, and all they do, they memorize the book, which it shows good initiative. At least you can memorize things.
Sure.
But then you come into the job and you're sitting there in the interview, and not only you're wasting your time, but you're wasting mine. I would start asking basic cybersecurity questions, and they're sweating and they don't know what to answer, or their answer is like, well, I haven't really worked on that much, so I'm not too familiar. And then the ones that I think are well vetted and well known and established is any SANS certification. Their certifications are amazing. I think they do a good job. They're so hard that they do an open book. Like, you can actually take notes, go with your book, and take the exam.
Okay, welcome back, everyone, to the Tech Jobber Podcast. Super excited about today's guest because if I had you list some of the top most exciting tech companies to work for, you'd say Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, stuff like that. But how far down the list would you get to when you'd say Burger King and Popeyes? Well, today's guest is going to tell you why you might want to move them up a bit. So we have Alex Llano. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, why don't you kind of give us an overview?
All right. So my name is Alex Llano. I started in the tech industry about 12, 13 years ago. Started my career in the Napa of the Americas, downtown Miami. And from there, I was doing a lot of networking, focus areas, the fiber optic, NOC, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, I started working at Prolexic, which then got acquired by Akamai. That was my first security job.
Okay.
I worked there for a couple of years. I got promoted to specialist, where I was doing more distributed denial of service attack mitigations, all the way from layer 7 all the way down. Wow. And from there, I always started my career, what do I want to do next? What insecurity I want to be in. And that's when I decided to move more into like the engineering side of the house.
Okay.
So, because in my head, my idea was like, okay, as a security engineer, how can I secure systems that I don't know how they work?
Right.
So I went and did some infrastructure engineering, some DevOps, programming, et cetera. And then I went back into security about 4 years after that, after I have gotten a lot of experience in the engineering side. And then I worked at Ultimate Software, became UKG, and now lastly at RBI.
Wow, okay. So, I mean, when you pivoted kind of mid-career, how did you actually pull that off? Because a lot of people were probably looking to do something like that.
So I already had a lot of knowledge because the work required it. Like, if you think about security, in the security world, you have to kind of be an expert in everything.
Yeah.
Because it's not, when security threats arise, it's not just one thing. It could be in anything. It could be an email. It could be somebody hacking into a system, lateral movement, et cetera. So it was quite easy, to be honest. I just found an engineering job. I was an infrastructure engineer, just basically building up an infrastructure, because the company was on-prem and they were moving into the cloud. So when the cloud really started taking off. And because I had a lot of experience already in Linux and networking, it was quite easy making the shift.
Sure. And what other technologies were you using with that first engineering job?
So it was a lot of DevOps. I learned a lot about configuration management, like Chef, for example. Okay. That was my first time seeing that. And then I started doing a lot of more programming and working closer with the development teams, working on their CI/CD pipelines. So that was a lot of fun to learn.
What programming languages were you?
Mostly Ruby. My first programming language was Python, because security industry, that's usually what most people use, because it's very geared towards like math and data management and data science. So that was my first one, and then here it was mostly Ruby. Okay. Especially because the Chef configuration manager is heavily built on Ruby. Yeah. So
is Puppet part of that?
Puppet is another configuration manager. Okay. It's different.
So obviously Puppet and Chef.
Correct. Those are kind of like the big ones.
Yeah.
And then there's Ansible as well. But that one has a lot of lower overhead. But But yeah, most people use Chef or Puppet.
Yeah, and for people, obviously some people would be looking to get into DevOps. What would you recommend as far as acquiring some of those skills? I mean, did you learn some stuff online? Was there educational stuff?
So one of the good things that I've seen for a while is that a lot of these companies, they provide good amount of documentation and tools online for free that you can take courses or like you can build your own small. That's something I would actually recommend, is build your own small infrastructure at home, especially with the power that these machines have now these days. Like you could have in your laptop as much power as an infrastructure server had 10 years ago.
Right.
So you can run a bunch of VMs, create your own little lab network, and then from there on you can test Chef, you can test Puppet, you can test any CI/CD pipelines that you may want to test out. GitHub, you can get a free GitHub account. GitLab as well, Bitbucket, you name it. AWS also gives you a lot of free resources. You can instantiate EC2 instances for free for as long as you don't consume X amount of hours a month. And you don't pay anything. So that really takes you to that next level where you can get hands-on training by yourself on those areas.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't take advantage of those.
A lot of them.
You know, everyone wants to just immediately start spending money on. Let me just. It's like, well, all right, well, get your free education first.
Exactly.
And then you level up with the paid education, right? Okay, so where does that take us? So you get kind of the DevOps background, and then you come back to security. Okay, so where are you then in your career? What company?
So I was doing, it was a startup company called Advantone, then which got acquired by Intellipeer. And then from there, that's where I moved to Ultimate Software.
Okay, so what is Ultimate Software?
So Ultimate Software is a human capital management company. So they're the direct competition to IDP, for example. Okay. A lot of people know IDP. Yeah. IDP is like the biggest one. And then I think Ultimate Software is right behind them or right there. The current name is UKG because they merged with Kronos, so they became UKG. So it's Ultimate Kronos Group, basically. Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, that was a shift. And the reason I went there to Ultimate Software was because two of my good friends from Akamai that I met at Akamai and worked with at Akamai were working there.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you're at UKG and then...
And then the RBI.
And then RBI, yeah. I mean, so one of the many reasons I wanted to have you on was to highlight one of the kind of local companies. They're not actually they're a big employer of this area, but are they based in Toronto?
They are. Their headquarters is in Toronto. Okay. Well, they have headquarters there. The headquarters here.
And this is the U.S. headquarters.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I've been looking to highlight some of the kind of local tech employers that people wouldn't think about. RBI was kind of very high on that list, and that's why I reached out to you.
Okay.
But why don't you just kind of give us an overview of RBI as a company?
Okay. So as you know, RBI is a franchise company. So we own 4 major brands. Burger King being I think the main one, and we have Popeyes, Firehouse Subs, and Tim Hortons. Okay. Those are all 4 major brands.
Okay, so they acquire franchises.
Correct.
But are they like technically the parent company of those restaurant brands? Or
correct.
Okay,
yes.
They are.
They are the parent company.
All of those.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And then they build their own software in-house.
Yeah. So what kind of attracted you to them? Was it the job? Was it the company? I mean...
if I'm being honest, actually a person that I work with at UKG moved there. So they just... So actually, to answer your question more directly, what attracted me to them is that their security program was being built from the ground up. And I've always enjoyed... I feel like you have more flexibility on how you build your team. And I saw a lot of opportunities there. I was already at a point in my career where I was a senior engineer, or security engineer. So I was like, okay, where do I go from here? Yeah. So I started getting more interested in the leadership role, trying to be able to build my own team, work with individuals to enhance the security program in companies. So when that was brought up to my attention and I started interviewing with them, I spoke with the director and he explained how basically the security team was just going to be him and one person, the person that recommended me, and myself.
Yeah.
So that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, this is a really small team. So there's a lot of opportunity here to grow and to actually build the security program at this organization. So I think this would be a good move, and it would be cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. And was this your first kind of management, like people manager
Yes,
job?
correct.
Okay.
I actually started as a senior engineer there.
Oh, you did?
And
Okay.
then I brought, within a couple months, I started bringing a lot of good ideas, and it became to the attention of the CISO and the director, because obviously the director was the one that brought it up. And they're like, wow, this guy is really good. Like, he knows his stuff. So that's when we had a conversation, and they came back to me and said, like, you know what, we want you to run the team. So we're going to promote you to manager.
Wow.
You're going to run the team, and we're going to keep expanding. Because at that point, it was 2 senior security engineers reporting to the director.
Oh,
So there was that small area there where the director was basically doing all the director job and manager job. So they thought it would be a good idea to move me into that position.
Yeah. Okay. And then how much has your role changed? Obviously, your peers are now under you.
Correct.
How was that kind of transition for you?
It's been great, especially with my senior guy. He was the one that actually recommended me, and we both started at the same level. And I feel like he was really excited for me to take over the team. Like we've worked together before. He's seen my capabilities and my understanding of security. So he was very excited to have somebody that he could speak the same language and have the same type of ideas and conversations to build the security program and enhance our security posture.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, so let's talk about RBI, Restaurant Brands International, as a whole. I mean, because again, people don't think of Burger King as a tech company.
Right.
So why don't you kind of go into, before we go into like kind of the security challenges that you're dealing with every day, that people also don't think about, what about some tech initiatives that they're rolling out and have rolled out since you've been there that people will be like, oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Like, I wouldn't even think about something like that.
That's a good question, because starting at this company, I kind of had some of the same thoughts. And then when I started getting more involved in the infrastructure and started talking more with engineers and looking at the architecture of these apps, I was quite impressed, to be honest.
Yeah.
They do have a lot of innovative and new ways to deploy applications and keeping up with the industry, that you don't see quite often in companies this big.
Yeah.
And like they have a lot of cloud exposure. They have a lot of systems up in the cloud. They always testing, like now most recently, I think they're starting to test some of the AI on the drive-thrus. So people make orders through AI systems rather than with people. And then you have somebody on the other end just listening to make sure that the right order goes through, et cetera, that kind of thing. That most people don't think about what these companies are doing to improve the consumer experience.
Right.
And they're constantly finding new ways to improve that.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you don't think of Burger King as an AI company either.
Exactly.
You think of ChatGPT and this and that. But so yeah, I mean, obviously that seems like the next kind of evolution for fast food places, right?
Right.
Is automation, AI type stuff. I mean, what do you see kind of in the future as far as tech initiatives from them?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know where I would see them going. What would be next for them?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because obviously they're greatly impacted by, like, you know, you do the minimum wage hikes, which all the politicians fight for, and then people end up losing their jobs because they just bring in a machine to do it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So stuff like that. Okay, but then let's discuss once again, people don't think of like people hacking Burger King, but obviously that's what these are the fights you're in on a daily basis. So like, what type of cybersecurity challenges are you dealing with? So
some of the most common ones, which I think is global for a lot of organizations this size, is denial of service attacks, where from time to time we see attacks happening all the time, which luckily we have a lot of services in the cloud, so our cloud provider, they take care of that. We just apply certain rules if we need to or whatnot. And the other one that I never thought about until I started working here was that a lot of malicious actors, what they do is they whenever they come across a data dump of a bunch of credit cards, they create fake accounts and start testing these credit cards to see, or debit cards, bank cards, whatever it is, gift cards, to see which one actually have fun to then sell them or make other purchases in other areas.
Yeah. So where are they going to the store doing that? Or they're doing it online? I mean, like,
For what we see the most, they do it online. They create an account on the BK app or the Popeyes app, and then they send a transaction.
and they try to fund that. They try to fund that account with a fake credit card, basically,
Not so much. What we're seeing is just placing order.
and just have it delivered, and to see if
Or have it go nowhere. They don't care. They just want to make sure that it works.
The card
Yeah,
works
correct.
through you guys, and then use it for big purchases too. I
Yep.
guess. Or,
That's what I'm guessing that what they're doing, which
Wow.
would make sense. So they would just order a burger, and then if the transaction goes through, they know it's valid. That it
yeah.
works.
So how do you stop that? I mean, that's like.
Well, we have some third-party companies that they would notice like certain metrics on those transactions, and they can identify the fraudulent ones versus the non-fraudulent ones.
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, it's very challenging knowing like what accounts are fake and what accounts are real. So that's kind of like the biggest challenge there to
Yeah.
prevent them from creating the account in the first place.
Yeah. So how is that done? Via kind of IP tracking, or?
We could do it multiple ways. We do IP tracking. We can mostly like IP reputation, for example. It's one of them. There's many companies in the internet that they create databases of known malicious IPs that are doing malicious activities. So we get a copy of those. We validate, and if the IP is within that group, we'll block it. That's one way. We can detect bots, for example, by looking at like certain like screen resolution, for example, or like how quickly an account is being created.
Okay.
Like, it's impossible for a human to create an account in milliseconds. So if we see something of that nature, we know it's a bot.
And so how would they do? So that they have a bot that is just literally rifling through all of these credit cards that they got off the dark web, putting it through your app, creating new accounts, and seeing it and doing transactions, see if it works.
Correct. Exactly.
Wow.
And like at that point, they know the card is valid.
Yeah. So then what is the process there? Okay, a hacker tries to put a card through. You guys catch it. Does it go to law enforcement? Does it just, you guys just stop it there? I mean.
We just, at that point, we make sure we stop it there.
Yeah.
I don't think we, at least from my team perspective, we don't go the next level to like notify the authorities.
Yeah.
Because imagine if we were to do that, that would already take
thousands of times a day.
Right, exactly. So I don't know if the third-party company that we have also, where we do the transactions through, they would take it that step further.
Yeah.
But at least on our team, we don't handle that.
Okay.
Communication.
So I mean, it bounces to the credit card. Like, hey,
Correct.
by the way, someone has probably stolen this guy's card.
Correct.
You should probably look into it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then anything else that you guys face? Like people try to hack into your internal servers. You said they do the credit card things. I mean, what anything else you faced?
Not really, per se. I mean, it also depends because we do have, I feel like we've built a very strong security program in the last 2 years that I've been there. And even a little bit before that, with the people that were there before, we've definitely come a way, like quite a long way from when I started.
Yeah.
And I think we do a really good job when it comes to mitigating any potential threats.
Yeah.
Like we have an extremely good and efficient program for like phishing campaigns that is run by the director of risk and compliance.
Yeah. Can you go into what that is real quick for people that don't know?
Oh, sure. So basically we have a automated system that sends emails that make it look legitimate with a link to nowhere, basically. But every email is tailored for specific groups, and then it's also per specific user. So we'll know if what person clicked on the link and which didn't, and then we'll pull in a report, and those that clicked on the link will go back, we'll tell them that they clicked on a malicious link, but fortunately it came from us.
Yeah.
So we'll have them take extra training to understand what to look for, and not to click on something that they don't know where it came from.
Yeah. And this is for the internal people.
For all the internal employees, correct?
Okay, so all the internal employees, you send out kind of a dummy email,
Yep.
like just to
Exactly.
remind them, these links could really,
Exactly.
because someone clicks on a link, it could kind of take the whole thing down,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then anything else as far as security wise that are potential threats, even if you haven't faced them now? I mean, what do you see possibly in the future? I mean, with AI, it's going to be, obviously everyone says cybersecurity is going to be kind of a main focus of kind of automation, right?
Correct. Yeah. So some of the other measures that we've taken in place for that, we made an executive decision to block all AI related sites. Like, we don't allow employees, and it's not so much of a security threat, it's more intellectual property, because some people, we understand how AI could be efficient in your job and it could help your daily life and to make you perform better at your job. Mm-hmm. But what most people don't understand is that sometimes inadvertently you can't get some intellectual property, throw it in an AI chat, and now they have that.
Right.
So that was the strongest point where we decided to block all AI sites, and we only allow one that we pay for and we have a partnership with, because we have access to the data. So we can go ourselves and remove it.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of, we'll say, like, the things that kind of keep you up at night are all based on kind of, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Correct.
Or, the weakest link that one of your employees clicks on potentially, yep. Right? So it's a lot of education on that, and just, like older, supposedly, like, older people are getting scammed on mm-hmm. these, oh, your Amazon driver's close. Oh yeah. Oh really? Okay. Let me see where he's at. Click. Exactly. And so those are the type of things that kind of keep you up at night.
I wouldn't say keep me up, but at least not anymore, because we know we have a very strong program, and we've spent a lot of time talking to this user and educating all these users in when it comes to, like, phishing emails and, like, not clicking something that you don't know where it comes from. Yeah. And we also have a lot of, like, interactive training that we make it fun. We make it kind of like look like a game, and we have, like, you acting as a hacker, just to bring that visibility into what you can do with certain information. Yeah. Like something as simple like posting a picture or a selfie from work and in the office, where in the background you see some confidential information that should not be seen. And then you post it on social media, and now everybody's seeing that. So that
has happened?
No, it hasn't happened, but we also train, we think about it, and it hasn't happened to us. But
other companies?
None of the companies that I've worked for, but I've seen it happen. Especially for regular people, where they'll post, oh, we're checking in Hawaii for the weekend. And, like, if somebody's actually following your profile, they can see that your house is empty. So they can go and steal all your property, and you won't know until you get back. Yeah, and that's kind of a common, I know in LA, I think that happens a lot. People are just kind of scouting out, rich people's Instagram, see when they're traveling. Exactly, it's easy. All right, the house is open, let's go. And most people do that. So I recommend people do that after you're back from your trip. Yeah. And then post all the pictures when you're back. Don't do it, like, enjoy your time. That's why you go there, to enjoy your time. Take all the pictures you want, and then when you get back, update all your social media, say that you were there. Right. Yada, yada. And I think that one of those rap guys got killed that way. The girl he was with posted, oh, they're at this place, and then I guess people wanted to get him. Okay. They knew where it was now. Right. Okay. So why don't we talk about cybersecurity as a whole? Because I kind of want to leave a lot of time for you to give some tips to people. Again, as we were talking before this interview, a lot of people see the big money thrown around to cybersecurity, and they say, great, that's what I want to do. So what would you caution people and say, yeah, there is big money, but there's also this you're going to have to deal with. You have to kind of be this type of person. Like, what type of people do you say you'd be a good fit, or maybe should look at something else? Okay. So yeah, my first advice, don't do it for the money. Sure. Not because it's not worth it. It's very rewarding, but you won't be as good as you think you would be if you don't enjoy what you're doing. And it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of probably long nights. And you're also on call. There's no such thing as like, oh, I'm off for the weekend. No, you're always on call, because if a company gets breached, you're the first person they're going to call, because you're supposed to be the expert. Right. And then you're also the first person to get fired if you don't do your job.
Yeah.
So because the way that companies look at security, it's changed a little bit, but the way that companies look at security is that, okay, what are you bringing to the table? And what they don't understand is that no news is good news. So I'm keeping you off the news, so that's already a good thing, and that's what I bring to the table.
Yeah. So do you have to kind of, your department has to constantly kind of fight that where it's, there's big money in cybersecurity people, and they don't hear from you, which is the objective, until there's like a Marriott hack where all the users, some of these companies, Target's been hacked, all these companies have been hacked, and it's just obviously the worst type of publicity. And then the executives want to spend on cybersecurity, but that's too late, right? So
Exactly.
you guys kind of constantly have to justify your, the big money being thrown around.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. That's also part of the job. Sometimes you see yourself doing more reporting than your actual job. Just showing what you've done in the last 3 months or 2 months or 6 months or a year to executives, kind of like to show what they're spending their money on.
Yeah.
And once you do this for a while, you're going to start getting used to it. And it starts making more sense, because if you think about it from a different perspective, the person sitting in the CEO chair is thinking like, it's not looking at a day-to-day. He has his own stuff to do, right? So then he looks at some numbers and at the end of the year or the quarter or whatever, and they see this amount for security. Like, okay, but we haven't been breached. Everything seems fine. What are we spending money on? And then that's where our CISO comes in and it's like, well, this is what we're doing.
Okay. So that CISO is key to kind of lay out. Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure, nothing happened, but look at this company.
Correct.
Look at this company.
Correct.
Like, do you want this type of publicity? Do you want your customers' credit cards on the dark web, like we were talking about before? So that's, and what are we talking? I see all sorts of, I do a lot of hourly rates in my recruiting business. Cyber, the right cyber job, I've seen up to 150 an hour for, and sometimes even higher than that. So, how do you guys typically hire consultants or FTEs on your team?
No, actually. No, we have internal employees for the security group.
Okay, so all full-time employees?
Correct.
Okay,
Full-time employee.
Yeah, okay. But those numbers are, kind of in line with what is being paid. Because,
yes. Actually, RBI, when it comes to the security aspect of it, they pay rather well.
Yeah.
They understand, and it's also something that I admire about them. Like, they understand the need of security, and they know the worth and the value of security. So that comment that I mentioned earlier about having to prove your worth or to show your work, we don't really necessarily have to do it a lot here.
Okay.
That's something else that I admire, something that we recently did. We sat with a lot of executives and VPs, and the entire team did a whole presentation for them because they were curious to understand what we do on a day-to-day, more or less at a high level. So that helps them also understand and kind of leave us alone for a while. Like, okay, I know what they're doing. Yeah. They're doing a great job. They're doing what they need to do to keep us off the news. So
that's the key. Right?
So it's awesome, if I'm being honest. It's great.
Yeah. Because I know, obviously that was devastating for Marriott. You see the lines in Vegas because their entire system was hacked, right? And all the customer data. Once you get in, then you can pull all those credit cards. Yeah. And now you have to alert all your customers, hey, by the way, your card's been exposed, so you should probably watch out.
Yep. And not only that, it's the biggest problem there is brand reputation. Like, at that point, people know that happened. So whether we like it or not, for a while, most people are going to be afraid of doing any business with them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't want to put my credit card there. Like, this happened recently. It'll fade away after a few months, but at least for a while, you're going to see your sales drop.
Right.
Which
Instead
you don't
Popeyes
want.
will go to KFC.
Correct.
I don't trust those
exactly.
guys, right?
Yeah, let me go somewhere else. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And, what about anything else for prospective cyber? Okay, so they have to be hardworking. Yes, the money is good, but don't do it for the money. I've heard multiple people say that. So that's very
Yeah, because
what else?
Something that I've seen throughout my career, it's been a lot of people that get into security because of the money, and then they go out and get all the certifications that are well known and well established, and all they do, they memorize the book, which it shows good initiative. At least you can memorize things.
Sure.
But then you come into the job and you're sitting there in the interview, and not only you're wasting your time, but you're wasting mine.
Yeah.
Because in your resume, it shows that you have a certain list of skills, and then I would start asking basic cybersecurity questions, and they're sweating and they don't know what to answer, or their answer is like, well, I haven't really worked on that much, so I'm not too familiar. And then I'm looking, I'm like, but you have the certification, so you study this. You should at least know an answer, have an answer, or have an idea.
Yeah.
And zero clue.
What speaking of certifications, what certifications do you recommend? Like, okay, this one I really like, this one gives good training, or, you know.
It depends on which path you want to take in cybersecurity, because you have multiple paths.
Right.
You can do engineering, or you can do like risk management, for example, or risk and vulnerability management. So the ones that I think are well vetted and well known and established is any SANS certification. SANS from the SANS Institute.
Wait, sorry, one more time.
SANS, SANS.
SANS. Okay, SANS. Okay, yeah.
Their certifications are amazing. I think they do a good job. They're so hard that they do it open book. Like you can actually take notes, go with your book, and take the exam. Some of them, but they do like real life scenarios.
Okay, so to complete the certification,
Correct.
It's all scenarios that you have to be.
You have some multiple choice questions, and then you also have labs, but like real world scenario labs where you go in and they ask you, depending on the certification, like if you're taking one of the like hacking certifications, can't think of the name now, penetration testing.
Yeah.
They'll give you a scenario where like, okay, you need to hack this system and get in or execute this exploit successfully, for example.
Yeah.
Which is one of the cool things that the team that I work with at UK Ultimate Software did. When I went for my interview, they actually had me sit down on one of their labs, which I recognized as like, oh, this is from SANS. And they actually, part of the interview process, they sit you there and they have you go in a series of simulations, starting very easy to harder.
Yeah.
Like do a cross-site scripting attack, do a SQL injection, like find all the single unique IPs in these logs, and then the logs is complete chaos and mess. So you have to write some regex to find like the IP addresses and then unique them and all of that.
Yeah. So going back to that, so why don't you explain penetration tester for people that are looking to get into cybersecurity? They're actually a penetration tester. For what I understand, you're actually trying to hack into the system, looking for vulnerabilities. That's your job, right? Like
Correct.
You're actually a hacker, but you're one of the good guys, right?
Correct. Exactly. So exactly. So you try to exploit vulnerabilities in an application to find a fix for it.
Yeah.
Before a malicious actor actually does the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like validate some of the findings, like if an organization brings a consultant company to run a vulnerability assessment, for example, some of these teams that would validate that they're valid, they do exist, because when a lot of people think of vulnerabilities, they don't think about the risk. So a lot of companies focus a lot on the CVEs, which are the common vulnerability something. I always forget all the acronyms. And basically this database list is where all the vulnerabilities are listed with a specific defined criticality level. Yeah. So some organizations, they see like, oh, we use this type of system. There's this vulnerability, and it's marked as a 9 or 10, which is the 10 is the highest level. And then they go crazy, start freaking out, and then some of the security guys come in and they're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah,
like
we got
the
this.
vulnerability. Not only that, it's like you're thinking vulnerability wise, but there's a risk associated with that, which is not the same. So the vulnerability is how bad it is for somebody to exploit this, what access they can get, and then the risk is like what are the chances or the probability of this actually happening to us. If you have a server sitting in a back office that's not even connected to the internet, and we're using that for local employees to access, the risk is low. It's not even exposed to the internet, so who's going to get access to that?
Yeah, but the vulnerability score could be high, you're saying.
Correct.
But
the risk is low.
They can't do anything if they get in.
Correct. So in average, if the vulnerability is high, risk is low, they meet in the middle, so you give it like a 5 over 4. Yeah. So it's not as bad as we think. So, but a lot of people, they see like, oh, it's a 10. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, right. And then you have to kind of
And they're like,
calm
yeah,
people down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially
a lot of
executives.
calming people down.
Which is why it's very common. And this I actually recommend to everyone that it's in the job and doesn't know this yet. But as security folks, we usually focus more on saying security event than a security incident.
Yeah.
Because of the different negative connotation that incident have. Because if you say incident, like it's bad, something happened. Right. We're like, nah, this is a security event. So we don't know until we actually know.
Gotcha. Okay. And then pivoting to as far as hiring, you're the first hiring manager we've had on. You're episode 10, I believe. So I want to just have you give any tips for people. What are some common mistakes that people make? What have you seen in your career as a hiring manager so far?
So something I would say, don't lie. Just be honest.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know something, admit it. At least me personally, I would take that more. I'll give you points for not lying and being honest than give me the run around and say like you know something and then I ask you questions because I happen to actually know about it and then you're sweating and you can't answer the question.
Right.
That would be, I think, my biggest one.
It's like they filibuster. So
correct.
You ask like a direct question and they're, well, I've got experience. Okay. So if you don't know it, just be upfront.
Correct.
Okay.
And then never say that you're an expert unless you're actually an expert. Because something that I've learned in my career is that the more you know, the more you know, the more you understand that you know nothing.
Right.
So, because the tech world is so big and there's so many things to learn and know about that you'll never be an expert in everything. You can't, there's no way. You can't. You know?
Yeah. We see some of these resumes and the first page is just like you're saying, the acronyms. A lot of acronyms in this business, right?
Right.
So it's like there's no way you know all this stuff. No human could possibly know all these technologies.
Exactly.
So you kind of, so your first thing is to kind of maybe see if they're a bullshitter.
Yeah.
Okay. So after that, what else do you think? I mean, what has impressed you? What, people being prepared. What do you think?
For me, that's something I like is like, yes, be prepared. Mm-hmm. Learn about the company at least a little bit, what they do. I'm not asking you to give me the last yearly revenue right. for the last 5 years.
Quarterly statements.
Yeah, exactly. But at least know what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and think maybe what kind of challenges we could potentially see.
Yeah.
And just be yourself. I usually like to interview and hire for personality rather than skills. Because let's be honest, you can teach skills, but you can't change a person's personality. If the person doesn't work well with others, we can't work together.
Yeah.
Because that's when it comes to the security team, and this is something I usually talk to my direct reports, and even before being a manager, I always had the same ideology, and I used to tell everybody around me, like, look, we're the security team. We're not Alex, we're not you or her, it's all of us together.
Yeah.
And we have to work together as a team, and don't try to be a hero, because those 5 seconds that you spend trying to mitigate an issue by yourself could be essential to reduce the footprint or the actual problem itself. Reach out. We're a team. Like, reach out, get everybody on board if you see something that you don't know, and always be 100% sure of the answer to the problem.
Yeah, like, before you just dive in.
Exactly. Something I usually say is like, always ask this question, would I bet my job on it? If you're going to give an answer, would you bet your job on it? And if the answer is no, then trust but verify, talk it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be yourself, have a good personality. Yeah. And in this industry and in this field, more specifically in cybersecurity, just be a team player. You have to be a team player.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously your job is low stress, extreme stress, right? So when the shit hits the fan, you have to be able to trust the person is going to be calm, right?
Correct.
So, is there anything you do on the interviews to kind of feel that out, or is just kind of a general feel that you get?
I usually do it very casual.
Yeah.
I think that helps people calm down, and like, even if I see they're nervous or something, I try to ask them like some personal questions so I kind of have like some like relaxed conversation, like, oh, where are you from? Like, what do you do for fun? What are some of the activities do you do on your free time?
Yeah.
And then just open up with that, kind of like ease into the interview. And then depending on the role and the position, then I ask some technical questions or I don't.
Yeah.
Like for a junior person, the idea is like you're a junior, you know nothing.
Yeah.
So can you click a mouse and type stuff in a keyboard? Like,
Right.
you know how to use a computer? Are you willing to learn? And one of my important points when it comes to hiring is learning styles. Like,
Okay.
what are your learning styles? Can I give you a book, you'll read it and understand it? Are you curious enough to learn by yourself? Mm-hmm. Or do I have to hold your hand and show you the way? Because I don't have time for that, let's be honest. We don't have time for that. So if you can't learn on your own, then I can't help you.
How do you kind of sniff that out? Like, this guy's going to be tough to, like, I can't even, like, over a conversational interview, how do you kind of, like, are there triggers that you're like, this guy's going to be tough, he's not going to learn it, he's going to...
I honestly asked the direct question. I just like that. I just asked them, like, what's your learning style? Like, help me understand, like, or if they have a lot of certifications, I ask them, like, how do you study for this? Like, what do you do? And then also to answer more of your question directly, some of the things I look for is like, what do you do in your free time? Mm-hmm. So if somebody tells me like, oh, I do like capture the flag competitions just because I can, or I like to read some technology books, or like, how do you keep up to date with security? That's actually a good one. Like, how do you keep up to date with security threats and what's going in the security world? Mm-hmm. Then depending on their answer, that's where
What would be a good and bad answer? When you just,
I mean, a good answer,
hearing directly from you would be interesting, I think, for people.
I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just more like keeping up with security, with the security world and the security threads. I think podcast is a good one. Yeah. I myself, like, I'm constantly listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Like maybe some news on the internet, like actually simple ones is you can subscribe to a lot of like Blipping Computers, for example, or any of these websites that give you technology news, and you just get an email every so often. Like subscribe to the CISA, the website for news and updates.
Yeah.
Like the CVEs, that sort of things.
But someone within, now if someone just said like, well, I listen to podcasts, you would probably be like, because you know the industry standard podcasts, right? So would you kind of like follow up on which ones?
Yeah, of course.
And based on that answer, you could tell if they totally made it up, or it's like, okay, this is a person that is interested. And what are some of the ones that you like for people that are interested in cybersecurity?
My favorite one is Security Now with Steve Gibson and Leo Laporte.
Oh, yeah.
So it's amazing. I love it because it's one of those, at least the only one I found that is technical. It goes very deep into the technical details, but they also explain it in a way that is easy to understand for those that are not that tech savvy. And they provide a lot of information on like how to do things good, bad, kind of like what we're talking here, right? So like for those that are not tech savvy, how do you protect yourself? Like what to look out for. So that's my favorite one. And most recently, I started listening to, I think it's called Darknet Diaries. Okay. So I have like a secondary. So like I usually listen to Security Now. Once I'm done with that, because they do it on a weekly basis, I start listening to the other. Yeah.
So I think for junior people, stuff like that, you're asking more stuff like that, correct?
Yeah.
To get a feel, because if they can't, I read websites. Okay, well, what websites? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not someone you're maybe not going to consider, right?
It depends on the other answers. I wouldn't base my whole decision on the one item.
Sure.
Because, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you don't know that podcasts even existed on security, how can you listen to them?
Right.
But you could see people's reaction when you ask some of these questions. They're like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I'll look into it. And I think something else that's also important is like the following up after. Like something I've done in my career, for example, if somebody asks me a question in an interview that I don't know the answer, I always like to follow up with a thank you email. Like, hey, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Blah, blah, blah. And by the way, your question that you asked me that I didn't have the answer to, I actually looked it up. I did some research, and this is what I found to be a good option.
Yeah.
So I like people that would go that far, that shows interest, that shows drive, motivation.
Yeah.
So,
And for obviously entry level, you hire some entry level, correct?
yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, little things like that could go a long way.
Absolutely. 100%.
In fact,
Absolutely.
that's since everyone is even experience wise, that's really the key to getting a job, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, going
Absolutely.
the extra mile, and and then being obviously like you have to show that you have an interest in this.
Yep.
Again, you're not just doing it. If you're doing it just for the paycheck, you wouldn't know about those podcasts.
Exactly.
Right? Or you wouldn't have anything to deliver. In that
Or you
question.
wouldn't even be interested or in following up or just have a reaction like, oh, like,
Right.
wow, that's awesome. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah. Any other tips for people as far as interview? I mean, do you check their LinkedIn to make sure everything looks clean? Do you check their social media to make sure they're not crazy or something?
Actually, now that you mention it, maybe I should, but not really.
Yeah.
I like to get a feel more from the person and during the interview. Like usually even for resumes, I just glance at it real quick and kind of like look at key details. Like I don't read the whole thing or go into details about your previous roles.
Yeah.
It also depends the position that I'm hiring for.
Yeah.
Like if I'm looking for a senior, like, yeah, I'm going to be more,
To be specific.
more
experience.
specific. But I would say, generally speaking, for any position that you go for, at least have the basic concepts of computing.
Yeah.
Like basic, like what is networking? How does networking works? How do computers access the internet? How does a browser works?
Yeah.
Like how does computers work in general? Like, you know, like you have a CPU, you have memory, these things interconnect with each other and then they transfer jobs and they process data, etc.
Yeah.
Just basic concepts and have a solid basic understanding of those concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go. You're right from a hiring manager. And one more thing I wanted to ask. So our last guest, she worked at Nike, and there were a lot of kind of unique perks to working there. I mean, does RBI offer any like discounts or anything? Like, I mean, what are some of the unique reasons to work there?
I think like mostly the work environment. Like
Okay.
their culture is pretty good. They have a really solid culture. Actually, one of the things I've noticed, like nobody has an office, not even the CEO. Like he sits on a floor, open floor concept in a cubicle like everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. It's the first time I see it, but I think it's cool. Like they treat everybody as equals. It's like it doesn't matter that I'm the CEO or the CLO, CFO. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Perks wise,
Is there anything as far as the restaurants or anything that they offer you guys? Or?
no, because being a franchise company, is the franchisee technically own the restaurants. They're the ones that
good
run
point.
it.
Yeah.
So we don't get
I didn't
discounts.
even think about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we just tell them how to run it, and then they give us a fee of what they make.
Gotcha.
But they're the ones running it. So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't get discounts on those. Or what we do have in the office is that we have, like food-wise, they charge us at cost, so we don't pay extra.
Oh, okay. So
Whatever the
prices
food
be?
costs, I don't recall exactly,
Very low.
but it's very low.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, like if a burger is $5, we probably pay 3 or 2
Oh, wow.
as an example, because we pay at cost, whatever
Yeah.
that cost is.
So it's like a cafeteria, but it has
Correct.
all the fast food,
Yep.
like from the restaurants.
And more and other
And others.
type of foods, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And we also get like the soda fountains that you have in the restaurants. Like for Tim Hortons, they're like a version of Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts in Canada.
Yeah.
So like we have the coffee there. We have their coffee and like some of the things they have in the restaurant
Oh, wow.
at our disposal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just sit there, then we just go grab whatever we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I would say that's some of the perks.
Anything else as far as cyber, RBI, tips for young people looking to get in? I mean,
Tips for young people.
just any final stamps for anything throughout your career that, oh, I wish I knew that earlier, or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, actually, something I would highly encourage and recommend programming. Like really sharpen your programming skills. Learn at least, especially if you want to get into cyber, at least Python and know it very well. Be able to automate as much as you can, like, because that's big on the job. That could save you hours and days of hard work. And then overall, just learn how applications work. That's very important because, again, how can you secure something if you don't know how it works? Right? So be curious. Be extra curious. If you've never been in the dark web, go once at least and look around just so you get a feel of what it is and how it looks like, you know?
So you've seen what
Yeah. And I do it from time to time, just out of curiosity to see what's new, what's changed, what's going on. It also helps in your career because who knows, maybe one day you're just browsing and looking around and you come across information about your own company that you're working for and you're like, oh, wait,
we're in trouble.
what is this? And then you start looking and then you go back and say like, hey guys, I found this. Like, we need to take care of this like now.
Yeah. And real quick before we go, how do you actually access the dark web?
So there's a lot
work?
of recommendations online that you can Google. The biggest one is the Tor browser. So just can install that in multiple systems. I would usually recommend having an isolated machine to do that. So like get like an old laptop or something, format it with your favorite operating system, Windows, Linux, whatever it is, and use that instead. And if you have like one of those offshore VPNs, use that as well.
Yeah.
Like don't do it from your home.
Yeah, but like I've never been on the dark web. Like, what is it? It's like a marketplace. It's websites.
So it's a lot of websites that end in like specific domains, like that Onion or like I think they have others. And there's this search engine called Haystack. It's one of the biggest one. That's where you can search. Like it's like a Google for the dark web.
Haystack.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think it's called Haystack.
Yeah, and so it's completely anonymous, right?
Correct.
You can't like no one can tell who anyone is.
Correct. In a way.
Yeah, but I guess there's ways they can get around that.
Right. It's very difficult.
Sure.
Especially on the Tor network, because what the Tor network does is like it jumps around different servers back and forth. So it's hard to do that connection, track it back.
Where
Exactly.
It came from.
And then using a VPN on top of that to encrypt the communication makes it even harder.
Yeah.
I'm one of those that like to say nothing ever is impossible. Like
Sure.
there's no silver bullet in security. Like if it's in the internet, it can be hacked in a way.
Yeah.
How difficult it is and what is the probability of that happening could be low, but it could happen.
Yeah. And do you have any VPN recommendations? Anything you like? Or?
Molvad is a really good one. Well, I think one of the good things they have is that you can actually send them cash and they're valid. Like you'll create a user, they'll give you like a random number.
Yeah.
You can put cash in an envelope, put that number with a note inside. Once they receive the money, they activate your account.
Wow.
Which is completely
secure. Wow.
But for normal people, out of all those regular ones, I say like ExpressVPN is a really good one because something they do is that they run all their VPN connections. They run them in like memory. So every so often, once memory is gone, data is gone. So even if somebody comes and asks them for your data, they don't have it. So they can't give you what they don't have.
Wow. Okay.
So for the regular user, I would recommend that one over like NordVPN, for example, which is another great one. Don't get me wrong. It's just I prefer this one for that reason.
Yeah, that's the one I use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And obviously, people are everyone's in Starbucks and pulls up their laptop. All their stuff's exposed.
Absolutely.
If you're not using the VPN.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody can do a man-in-the-middle tag and see all your traffic and all your information.
Yeah. Yeah. So watch those public Wi-Fis too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on your phone. Put it everywhere.
Put it everywhere, even if it burns a little battery, right?
Yeah.
It's worth it. I mean, the alternative is...
It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, Alex, thanks so much for being here. You gave us kind of a great background on getting in the cyber field. You gave us some great interview tips. And I mean, I think people are a bit surprised that they didn't think their local Burger King was such a tech hub, but it really is. So
it is, yes.
Yeah. Thanks so much. And guys, we'll catch you next time.